Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Expanding Forward radio show. Conversations about juicy living. With your host, Carole Lewitski.
Welcome to our first ever Expanding Forward Blog Talk radio show. I am your host, Carole Lewitski. You can join us on our live broadcast every third Monday of the month. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/expanding forward and sign up for show reminders to catch the show live. We can also be reached at www.expandingforward.com or through the Facebook page .com/expanding forward. This is a call-in show, and it's our first show. I'm super excited. If you wanted to call in at any point, the number is 657-383-0934. And to ask any questions, it's *2. So there's also a chat box if you're listening online to write any comments or ask questions. So I can't even begin to say just how excited I am to be doing this show today. I can see that I've got my good friend Amy here with us, and she was highly instrumental for the last couple of years, has been pushing me to do this show. So Amy, just shout out to you. I am doing it, and it's happening today. So the other reason I'm super pumped is because Jeannie Selda is our guest on this first show. It means so much to me that Jeannie could make it work for us to connect today, because just the conversations that we have on a regular basis are just too powerful to not share. And the topic today being self-love is the perfect way to start it all, because as far as I'm concerned, that's where it all starts. But the question is, what does that even mean? So we'll be getting to that very soon. The reason self-love became the topic for today is that's been coming up quite a bit in conversations for the last little while. Either through personal conversations with friends or coming up with clients as well. And personally for me, self-love is where it all started, because I so deeply dove into my role as a wife, as a mother at such a young age. And as many of you know, if you're a mother, you can easily lose yourself in that process. And my entire life revolved around making sure everyone around me was happy and comfortable, and that worked for quite a few years. But at one point, I just couldn't do it anymore, because it was pushing me beyond my limits. I was not listening to my body. I was not listening to my inner voice anymore. I was just on default, and it started being self-destructive internally, but it's only when it started showing up with physical manifestations that I really started paying attention. So being sick a lot or having migraines. But I knew something was completely unbalanced, and I knew it had to do with taking care of myself, but I just had no clue where to begin. So I'm going to admit that how that showed up for me was this intense fear that I started asking myself, if I start taking care of me, will people around me think that I'm neglecting them? Or will they think that I am selfish? And then guilt showed up. And a lot of times, just self-love can really bring up funny emotions like that, of just confusing it with being self-consumed, when really that's not what it's all about. I absolutely love a video I had seen of an interview of Elizabeth Gilbert with Oprah at one point. And it was based on self-love, but it was talking about your passion, because a lot of times when we really tap into self-love, it is through our things that make us passionate. But the big question was, what do we even know our passion is? Like, I know for myself, I'd be like, okay, I don't even remember who I am anymore. So how do I even know what I love to be able to even take care of who I am? And so she had made a good point that it's really, rather than looking at the big picture of passion as some overwhelming, lifelong place to get to, that if we just followed our curiosity, that step by step, we could start discovering a part of ourselves that we lost along the way. So having just given a little bit of that, there's so much more to be said on the subject, but I don't want to delay bringing on my beautiful friend Jeannie, and expert in relationships, expert in parenting, Jeannie Selda. How are you, girl?
I am amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you are amazing. I'm just so happy to have you here. So, yeah, what do you think of that topic to tackle as a first radio show topic?
You know what? I can't even imagine where my journey would be like today if it wasn't for just the clarity of self-love and what was working, what was not working in my life, and how far I've come along in this journey because of the realization of how important it is to really put yourself first in this perspective, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. It's such a foreign concept, especially. And I talk about moms, but it's not exclusive to mothers, because in fact I know quite a few men personally in my life that are highly generous individuals, and how easy they can get caught up in being the like devoted father or the employee that you could just rely on. They just give, and there's certainly nothing wrong with being generous, but if it's at the cost of our own well-being, that's where it starts being, right? So,
absolutely.
So yeah, what I found really tricky myself, and what I think a lot of people find tricky, is just like, where do you even begin? How do you even start knowing what it looks like to take care of yourself? And how can you do that without feeling scared that it's going to compromise everyone else, your relationships with everyone else?
It's funny that you had mentioned that, because it's like what you said in the beginning with the symptoms and the signs that you had seen in yourself was just the overwhelm and the physical symptoms. And I think that's where it started for me. And it was that moment where I felt it was really that moment where I started questioning everything. And with that questioning, it was, why am I feeling so overwhelmed all the time? Why do I feel this angst with the little things like housework or being with the kids? Even spending time with family and friends, just for me, started feeling like work. And it was the moment that I started questioning, is there really more that's possible? Because life is not supposed to be this constant struggle. It's like life is not supposed to be, this just uphill battle to get things done. And for me, what I realized was, for myself, I was getting sick as well. I was feeling very irritable with the kids. It took such an effort to be able to clean the house, and not only that, it was really manifesting itself in the people around me. My husband back then was just always coming home grumpy. My kids were just irritable as well, and for me, it just made me question, why is this all happening?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you would say that was like your turning point, where you're just like, there has to be something better than this.
Yes. And
you know what?
It's funny. Exactly. And you think to yourself, once you're married and once you have kids, it's you've reached that end point. This is it. This is what life is supposed to be like. This is how I'm supposed to be as a mother. This is how I'm supposed to be as a wife. This is how I'm supposed to be as a sister, as a daughter, as a girlfriend. And it just felt like, my skeptical mind said, oh, I've arrived. This is just what it's supposed to be. But all the the struggles just felt so incongruent to the harmony that I could feel even as a young kid. You're thinking, well, life is supposed to be all about joy. Life is supposed to be all about having fun. And why is it not like that at this moment?
Right. And I mean, just to keep it real, of course, there's parts of life that are not going to be fun. I mean, I have changed my share of diapers to know that it's really pulling myself way above being a human being to find joy in that process, or cleaning up vomit from the walls or from beds or whatever fun experiences you get as a mom. And I get that. That's the part that you just know that you just hold them in your arms when it's all said and done, and you feel that love, and you recognize that is part of the giving component of love. But at the same time, I get what you're saying when there starts to be a buildup of resentment because you're giving even when maybe you should have said no to something.
Absolutely.
And because you just fall into default of being like in service always without considering what is in my highest. And I mean, even that expression, I wouldn't have even understood what that means just 3 years ago. But to put it simply, it's like asking, just feeling into your body and saying, does it feel good? Does it feel right for me to do this right now? And then considering that maybe there's people there to help. Like, that's how where I struggled is just I took it all on and didn't even consider to ask for assistance. It's just that whole, like, I can handle it mentality or attitude, right? That can really get us in trouble.
Absolutely. I hear you. And, it's funny because it goes about into that paradigm of, it's our job. It's that old paradigm that this is how it looks like to be a mother. This is, it is what it is. You are supposed to carry your family. You're supposed to, make sure your husband is happy at the end of the day. You're supposed to make sure that your kids are happy and well behaved at the same time. And for me, it was just that kind of that derogatory feeling where, I am loving being home the first 3 years of when the kids were born and being with them and just the enjoyment and not having to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But at the same time, it was just like, wait a second, it just doesn't make sense why I'm feeling so burnt out and why, it's all of a sudden that kind of schizophrenic feeling where I'm happy but I'm not happy, and what is this, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
and feeling
absolutely.
guilty for not feeling happy.
Right. Isn't that a mental, crazy runaround feeling of just, guilting yourself for not feeling all that you think you should feel. And what's so interesting is that when you do start taking care of yourself or start leaning into the whole self-love idea, however that's going to look like, and that's going to be different for everyone. For me, it started by just getting a regular massage, like actually letting someone make me feel good for a change, like somebody else that would be nurturing me, because I was just so consumed with nurturing everyone else around me. And so that was like a slow practice at learning how to receive. And with time, like as you start allowing that to be part of your life, just allowing people around you to help you and accepting assistance and then doing little things that make you feel good, it ends up doing all those things you talked about, like making your husband being happier, there being more harmony within the family. Because when the mother's happy or when you're just happy, it reflects and affects everyone around you as well. So I could put like this fake smile on my face and pretend all is well when I'm hurting inside or I'm not feeling this self-love for myself. Everyone around you is going to feel that. The smile's not going to fool anybody, right? Especially kids.
Mm-hmm. Especially the kids. They feel it all.
So what kind of things did you find were good ways to start the process of self-love?
You know what? For in my experience, I think it was that moment where I finally had to even just give myself the permission to take 5, because that just wasn't even something that I would even consider. It wasn't even an option. You know, it was more of, you know, this is your totem pole, Jeannie, and you know, your husband and your kids are at the top. Family is right underneath. You know, the housework, the kids. It's the picture of everyone, you know, being happy first, and then me being at the bottom of the totem pole. And then from there, you know, just realizing that, wait a second, that is just not serving me, because it's certainly not serving anyone around me. And what does it look like to put myself at the top of the totem pole? And in the beginning, it just, you know, again, I was questioning it, because it's like, okay, does that mean I should take a vacation? Does that mean, you know, I should get a massage every single week? But it was even for me the little things where, you know, just to give myself permission to step away when the kids were crying in their cribs, and you know, I was just starting to feel more and more frustrated. It was giving myself the permission to, okay, Jeannie, go outside and just sit outside for 5 minutes just to get yourself grounded and know that the kids are safe and there's no emergency, and to go get back in there with a different frame of mind that, okay, there's no urgency and life is good, and just feeling the gratitude of really what you have in front of you. And it just started not feeling like work again. You know, another big way for me was to be able to say, okay, you know, when I had told my husband, okay, I am going out for dinner with the girlfriends, and just to be able to take that time out of just the paradigm of parenthood and motherhood, I just found I came back so much more rejuvenated, so much more inspired to dive into whatever the day presented for me. And it kept on going and going, and the little things just turned into big things. And, you know, trips had presented with my work that allowed me to travel, and being away, you know, even for a week, just provided such incredible, powerful clarity on what was truly available when you really honor and love yourself first. But it's coming from a place of, you know, when you love yourself, you're really honoring everyone around you. It's not really coming from a selfish standpoint. It really is coming from a self-full standpoint, right?
Well, and I love that you bring that up, because that's so easily confused, right? That there's this idea that self-love could mean that, like you talk about being top of the totem pole and I know exactly what you mean, that doesn't discount your love for everyone else. In fact, it's a deeper way of expressing love, because when you recognize that you're doing things coming from a place of what's in your highest, it ends up serving the whole. Everybody involved has more of you, because you have more energy and you're more positive. And you talk about that taking 5. I can't say enough about that. I love, and you keep reminding me about that as well. It's like just stepping away, and you talk about grounding, and for those who maybe don't know too much what that means, it'd be like going from impatience and rage and being caught up in the emotion, and just by stepping away, you can like press a reset button, and it allows you to just step back into the situation and just be like, have so much more clarity and be so present to whoever it is, whether it's your kids, whether it's a friend, a sibling that you're having a conversation with, like just really recognizing when it's just not serving because of all the intensity that shows up, and just stepping away. And that falls into being able to say no, right? Just having been so used to defaulting to yes, yes, yes to everything, it's like taking that moment to just say, okay, let's take a breather here. I'm just going to...
Oh, my God, amen to that.
Amen to that, sister. So I just have to do station identification. So you are on the Expanding Forward radio show. It's on blogtalkradio.com/Expanding Forward. And it's Jeannie Selda, Carole Lewitski, having a conversation to regular people about regular life stuff, but big stuff, because, yeah, self-love is not not something to take lightly. That is for sure. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I wanted to bring up another thing with self-love too, is that as much as it started with recognizing physical needs, like maybe taking a break, or we all know that it all starts inside of us, right? Like feeling maxed out, feeling pushed to the limit. It's when we're not taking care of our spirit, and then it shows up physically, correct?
Yes.
And so when we see the physical symptoms, it's been a while that it's been showing up within us. And I remember going to my naturopath, and she was saying, I could feel a lot of rage in your liver, and I didn't have a lot of experience with naturopaths at the time. I thought, there's something flaky about her. She's talking about my liver being angry. But I came to understand later, and it didn't make sense to me, like, to have anger, because I felt I was at peace with everyone in my life. I love people, and if I have issues, I resolve them. But what I came to see later, that it was anger towards myself for all the times that I had not taken care or expressed self-love to myself. And sometimes that shows up with the conversations we have in our head. Mm-hmm. What could you say on that? Like just the self-criticism, or the abuse, let's call it for what it is. It's abuse towards ourselves. Have you ever experienced any of that?
Oh gosh, many, many times, and it even still continues to this day. But on this journey, you just kind of get more clarity on the difference between, what your heart is feeling versus the skeptical mind, right? And, there's days where, the skeptical mind would be in default mode because you wake up with a messy house, or you wake up with all this barrage of to-dos, and then you immediately, at least for me, I know I end up beating myself up, and it extrapolates itself to, oh my gosh, you're a bad mom, and you are a bad manager, and you're just not getting it done, and you don't have anything handled, and how are you going to even get it all done? So by the time you drop off the kids, it almost feels like it's already 5 o'clock and you haven't even started your day. And, for me, it was a clarity that, what I've noticed and what's worked for me is just even asking myself, first of all, is this even mine? Like the feeling of overwhelm, is this mine? Does it even belong to me? What did what just triggered me? And, I realized that, sometimes I have to take a moment to, get my surroundings or get my systems in place so that I can wake up in a grounded state to be able to not assist not only myself, but to be able to have a fluid morning with the kids, right? And it's just interesting how much sometimes we beat ourselves up, but, I just feel that there's such a difference between, what your mind thinks and what your ego kind of goes through and tries to judge versus, what really is the truth of your heart? Is it really that important to, have a clean kitchen right now? Can it be done later? Is it an emergency? What really, like you said, Carole, it's like, what is in the highest at this moment that will serve not only me, but everybody else?
Right. So key. And really, it's the conversations we're having in our heads and what we take seriously is going to have an impact on our way of being. And when you're talking about just doing all of that and being able to just, your kids, your partner, your friends, they get to have all of you when you're able to be in that state. And that doesn't mean being perfect. That's still all of me with all my imperfections. Like, one thing that comes to mind is I made up my mind when I started having kids that I would let them screw up. I would let them screw up, and I would reassure them that it's okay. Like that whole spilt milk, like, big deal, you spilt milk, I still love you, and I'm not going to flip out. But the interesting thing is they would beat themselves up. And I was like, why are they doing that? It took me quite a few years to figure it out. And then I realized that they were imitating the way I was treating myself. Mm-hmm. So I never, ever made them feel bad about screwing up, but I beat myself up so much when I did, and they witnessed that. So when they screwed up, they thought, well, they you know, that whole, like, it's what you do that shows who you are. It's not what you say, right? It's your example.
Exactly.
It's how you... Oh, my gosh. It took me quite a while to finally get that. They were beating themselves up about their own mistakes because they saw how I treated myself when I screwed up. It's like everyone else can screw up, but I can't. And so that's really... right? And so in that judgment... It's like the most farthest removed thing from self-love. Like self-love is not about being self-consumed and thinking you're higher than, better than, more important than. It's about seeing that you're just as important as everyone else. It's having that reality check that I am a child of God. I am worthy of love. I am expression of creation itself. So if I'm having these angry, critical conversations in my head, it's abuse. There's no other way of saying it.
Yeah. And if I may share, because I think the one huge turning point for me was probably about 3-4 years ago when, you know, I grew up in a culture where it is all about nurturing, but it's nurturing coming from a place of just constantly giving, even if you don't even have enough energy to give. And it was always about, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? What can I do to make it better? How can I assist? And it was a point where I was speaking to someone and they had shared with me, you know, what if it's not about what can I do to help you? What can I do to help you? You know, what if it's all about, well, how can I emanate more of me for you? And that shifted things so profoundly for me, so powerfully. And it's like, wait a second, that's what it means to be at the top of your totem pole. Because if you emanate who you are, you know, vulnerable, you know, mistakes, imperfect you, it's like if you can just emanate more of you, that's really emanating it for everyone else. And it's just really just saying, you know, it's just shining your light and being the love, right?
Exactly. I could not have said it better myself. Jeannie, I can't even begin to thank you enough for being here today. Like, it just fills my heart. I thank you so much. Where can people reach you at if they would like to get a hold of you? Because you're a busy lady. You're like this amazing photographer of awakening photography, like these activating pictures. I cannot wait for that to be like seen by the world because you're so talented. Where can they reach you at if they'd like to get a hold of you?
First of all, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for just, you know, having this platform to be able to share. It's so powerful, and you're right. It's definitely being called for. And if people want to come and play, my website is www.tickettobliss.com, and they can reach me also on Facebook at facebook.com/Ticket to Bliss.
Yes, awesome. Ticket to Bliss. Fantastic. And if anyone would like to get in touch with me and discover more of what I do and why I do it, please visit my website at www.expandingforward.com. And if you're in the Calgary area, we're having our monthly meetup, and you can look that up. It's called Authentic Self Calgary. So I want to make sure I just do a big thank you to Adam Lamb, who has helped put this show together and is our technical assistant in the background making this happen. Thank you to our listeners. Cannot wait to do this again soon. Love you all. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Expanding Forward radio show with your host, Carole Lewitski. To find out more about Carole, you can visit www.expandingforward.com or check her out on Facebook at facebook.com/expandingforward.